We're done.
Yeah? That ain't gonna work for me.
You're done giving me orders. You're under arrest for the murder of Claudia.
Now, today we're going to be discussing all the problems that are going to be coming Tommy's way going into the home stretch for Fall Season 3. Joseph Sikora recently mentioned it in an interview that once he gets past the halfway point, the strings will snap. He's going to be pulled in 1,000,001 different directions. And in this breakdown, we're going to be talking about all those different directions. We're going to be taking a look at the angle of law enforcement after Tommy kills Stacey Marks. Tommy has a Bobby DeFranco problem, and possibly also with a new potential new US attorney of Chicago, Billy Seng. Maria is also going to be in trouble in episode 8, along with the rest of Tommy's family. That will also tie in with the Marquez cartel, along with JP, King Kilo, and D-Mac being in trouble. He also has a Vic Flynn problem, he's starting to go rogue, and finally, him being kicked out of CBI. Earlier this season, we spoke about how they started to take away the layers of Stacey Marks' character. Her divorce, her case was running away from her, she had Seng working for the Ortegas, Vic also turned, Tommy then killed Claudia Flynn and found a way of getting Stacey Marks in his back pocket. They were stripping her of everything that she had, and then it was lights out in episode 7. Well, they're now actually doing the same thing for Tommy, except I don't expect Tommy to die of course, because we know his story is far from over, but they are slowly starting to isolate his character by taking away one thing at a time. Definitely a lot of problems for one man to just deal as a lone wolf. Maybe he does need to make a call to bring in some reinforcements. As usual, there's definitely a lot to go through and unpack, so we are going to be starting with law enforcement. Now, Tommy killing a US attorney is going to cause absolute chaos in the media, within law enforcement, and also within politics. Stacey Marks was a very well respected figure who just started to lead the polls in the race to become mayor of Chicago. But all of a sudden, poof, she's gone. She's going to be found on the side of the road under a white sheet by Bobby DeFranco, and that changes the game for everyone. The first thing I do think we need to consider is Stacey Marks was dirty, kind of. She was forced into taking money by Pageant Inc., aka Tommy Egan, and then she was also fed the bogus information about Gabriel being behind the murder of Claudia. So, AUSA Seng will no doubt be on the move to not just try and take Stacey Marks' job, but to undo all the damage that she caused the Marquez cartel. Let's remember, he is someone who's under pressure from Shen, who's working for the Ortegas, who did come to see him in episode 7, which I do think he will. He's now in the perfect position to fix this mess for the Marquez cartel and take Stacey Marks' job, especially now that she's gone. They could even find the burner phone and look into Pageant Inc. They can link that to her potentially being mixed in with some of the major players in the streets, and that's also how she was getting her donations to her campaign, through Pageant Inc. AUSA Seng may not just become the new US attorney of Chicago and toss the case out against the Marquez cartel, he could end up throwing a hell of a lot of dirt on Stacey Marks' name in the process. So that's number 1. Billy Seng becoming the new US attorney of Chicago, finding the burner phone, doing the investigation into Pageant Inc. and linking her to crime, throwing dirt on her name, while releasing Roberto Ortega and Gabriel of the Marquez cartel. He'll also no doubt try and go for Tommy Egan himself, so AUSA Seng definitely will be on the hunt. Now number 2, Bobby DeFranco. He's going to be absolutely devastated. They were going through their problems, they were going through their divorce, but this was still his wife. So will he believe that Stacey Marks is dirty? Definitely not. She even came to see him at the end of episode 7 and told him that she was compromised, but she had no choice. She told him that she was going to fix it, and she even told him it was Tommy. He knows her character and who she is, he knows the woman that he married, so he may very well be on the hunt not just for Tommy, not just to get justice, but to also clear Stacey Marks' name in the process, which somewhat aligns with Seng as well, because he wants Tommy Egan for the Marquez cartel, and it'll also make him look good if he's able to deliver the drug dealer that Stacey couldn't. He mentioned it back in episode 4, his intentions were to deliver Tommy and walk into Stacey Marks' office. So you can see Seng and Bobby DeFranco kinda working together to try and bring down Tommy. Now there could actually be a scenario where dirt isn't thrown onto Stacey Marks' name. I just think with her connection to Pageant Inc., the burner phone, questionable decisions on the Marquez case, Markovich's death and then Claudia's death, that definitely does look hella sus from Stacey Marks. If I were investigating it as an outsider, not knowing the other side where she was forced by Tommy, Stacey Marks does look like she was working with a drug dealer and it went wrong. But Bobby DeFranco will definitely know his wife, as we mentioned before. If dirt is thrown on her name, he'll definitely be on the hunt for justice and also to clear her name. And I do also think this is him holding Tommy at gunpoint. So that's problem number 1, law enforcement. Now, on the Marquez cartel, we spoke about this briefly in the law enforcement chapter. I do think Roberto Ortega's time in jail is coming to an end. The case is incredibly weak anyway, and once they find out Stacey Marks' connection to crime, if they do throw dirt on her name, Roberto Ortega and Gabriel will both probably be released. And we all know how Ortega still wants both Tommy and Miguel dead, which he may even have to do himself, because Titus definitely won't get the job done.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Now, everybody was joking around how Tommy was running in the fight against Diamond, so it is only fair we keep the same energy for one of the worst hitters we've seen in the world of power. But we are going to see him going for Maria in episode 8, and that's another problem that Tommy has, pulling him in another direction. Although with this one, I do think Maria will manage to escape. I went through the extra scenes in my trailer breakdown. Whether Maria is harmed in the process, I don't actually think she will be, because she does seem to be okay in the few scenes that will most likely come after episode 8, which is the funeral. But even if she does deal with Titus, it still doesn't solve the Marquez cartel problem. As I mentioned, Roberto Ortega will most likely be released in episode 8, maybe 9, and no doubt he'll try and get the job done himself. So Tommy definitely does need to be on red alert. He needs to protect Maria like he promised, and also deal with the Marquez. So that's number 2. The problem with the Marquez cartel. Now, protecting Maria will be only one of Tommy's main thoughts in episode 8 onwards, so will protecting the rest of his family. That's another problem to add to his dilemmas going into the home stretch. And you know what? Let's make things even worse. Why not release King Kilo 2, just to throw another spanner in the works? They teased it at the end of season 2 and in season 3, he never really brought the story of Rashawn being behind Mad Dog's death. So I do think he is released soon, and I do think he takes Jannard up on his offer of smoking D-Mac as well. I do think D-Mac will be a wanted man in episode 8, but I think we all know who gets caught in the crossfire: JP. D-Mac's story is one which should definitely ring a lot of alarm bells, more so after episode 7. Things seem to be going a bit too well with D-Mac, and we know that doesn't last in the world of power. He was smiling, glowing in episode 7, that's because he finally got the girl of his dreams that he was chasing since season 2. She seems to be the perfect girl who has her head screwed on, she wants to go to college, and she also wants the best for D-Mac as well. She mentioned D-Mac has a score of over 1400 on his SATs. He also started to reconnect with Kate and JP. We saw a couple of moments between D-Mac and JP in episode 7, the happy dinner scene, and also the call with Kate. JP did also tell him that maybe he should think about Atlanta. Again, I would not be surprised one bit if Genesis did manage to convince him to go to Atlanta with her. But just as he comes to tell JP that he's made the decision to go to school, he finds him dead. It honestly really would be classic power. We've spoken about the red pill and the blue pill of power. Just as D-Mac decides to take the blue pill, he comes home and finds JP dead, which would completely turn his character. That's just a scenario and a bit of a prediction, but however it happens, it definitely is going to be heartbreaking, and it is going to be something that brings everybody to their knees, not just Tommy. Like we've been saying for majority of season 3, actions have consequences, and D-Mac still does need to learn. The streets are unforgiving. You can't be doing what he did by killing Mad Dog, because the result is probably this moment here, the death of JP, losing his father that he was just beginning to finally connect with. Now for Tommy, I do think he's going to be at Shanti's gym when he gets the call. You can see the boxing bag in the background. This is the moment where he drops to his knees, and where he most likely finds out JP's gone. So this is definitely another problem to add to the long list. It's crazy what Tommy's going to be dealing with in episode 8, 9 and 10. So that's number 3. JP's death won't just have an impact on Tommy, but also D-Mac and also Kate. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Come on, MovieBot, Vic is hardly a problem for someone like Tommy, and I definitely do agree. But when you consider everything else that Tommy's going through at this moment in time, him being pulled in 1,000,001 different directions, you wouldn't be surprised if he does take one eye off Vic. He's also kicked out of CBI, and he's also a lone wolf. And with all of Tommy's problems, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Vic now thinks, now's the time to make a move. Tommy's at his most vulnerable at this moment in time, it's now or never, go and take control over the Irish bars up north, maybe even team up with Jannard and CBI, continue under their coalition where he believes he's safe, and then he can target Tommy. Because at the end of the day, I think for him to be truly free, if that even exists in the world of power, which we know it doesn't, they spoke about free will back in season 2 of Ghost. I believe it was in episode 1 in the classroom scene, and how it's just an illusion. But if he wants to be free from Tommy at least, he knows he has to go on the offensive. Vic also needs to protect Ray like Tommy needs to protect his family. And don't forget the envelope from episode 1. Gary Lennon made a point prior to season 3 that he is a big believer in finishing storylines. So this will definitely be coming back around when it comes to Vic, if he is taken off the chessboard. He mentioned that this has everything law enforcement would need to put everybody away, so could we even be in for a situation where Tommy even has to leave Chicago come the end, because of what Vic has in this envelope? Definitely possible, but with Vic Flynn, he's also another problem that Tommy does need to keep in mind, because he will start to sense that he can finally get rid of Tommy's chain around his neck. So that's number 4, Vic Flynn going rogue. Now on CBI, we just went through Jannard and Diamond's perspective and why I do think it's going to be the end of CBI, why I do think Jannard probably faces death, Diamond maybe goes back to prison. But in that breakdown, I also asked the question, how does Tommy take back the coalition? Or how does Tommy defeat CBI going into the home stretch? I do think an alliance with Shanti and Miguel does make the most sense at this moment in time. He might be a lone wolf, but I do think Shanti will be by his side. And when something happens to Maria, so will Miguel. I also do think he has to make a play with Che and tell him that he's no longer working with CBI because they're pushing fentanyl, which will also affect his business. A business decision that was made without Tommy, and we all know you never mess with a connect's money. Maybe he even offers to continue running product for Che, but he does need a bit of help, which is what may push this alliance with Miguel. As I mentioned before, I don't think Tommy even needs to do too much because I do think CBI will destroy themselves, but at the same time, Tommy will also want his business and coalition back. Having an honest conversation with him, telling him that CBI forced him out and they're now running fentanyl is just the beginning. I do also think Tommy will defeat CBI in episode 9 as well. We are going to see that scene in the church, but just when he does, I do think that's when a new threat will emerge, and that's why he has to call Tariq. I personally don't think he'll have to call Tariq to deal with CBI. I could be wrong, it could be maybe this call that he makes in episode 8. I still personally think it's a new threat that will take power in a complete new different direction before they head off to Legacy, and that's also based on what Joseph Sikora teased on a Reddit page prior to season 3. But that's number 5, and I guess also number 6, Tommy being kicked out of CBI and potentially a new threat emerging, which is why he has to call Tariq. Now taking everything into account, you can definitely see why Tommy would need help. You can see why he would need to call Tariq at some point, either in episode 8 or 9 for the grand finale in episode 10. What we've been through in this particular breakdown is probably just scratching the surface of Tommy's problems. I'm sure there's going to be a few more twists and turns that makes things even worse. But just as a quick brief overview, number 1, he has a law enforcement problem. That includes both Bobby DeFranco and most likely the new US Attorney of Chicago, Billy Seng. Number 2, the Marquez cartel. They're going to be coming for him, Miguel, and Maria. Number 3, to make things worse, I do think JP's death will bring him to his knees. Number 4, there's Vic Flynn also going rogue and the envelope. Number 5, being kicked out of the CBI and him turning into a lone wolf. And number 6, a new threat that makes Tommy call Tariq. Maybe it's the Chinese, maybe it's the Italians, who knows. It's definitely all poised and set up for Tommy to make that call. In my opinion, they just need to kind of strip away a tiny bit more, and then that call will definitely be made, no doubt. But the floor is now yours. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.